Hello, friends. So, we're going to start off with a prayer that I really need this morning. Hopefully, it will bless you as well. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Good morning, God. Please help us to be grateful and appreciate your goodness and how much you love us, care for us, and provide for us. Help us to remember that you dwell within our hearts and that we get to walk in relationship with you each and every day. Help us remember that whatever our position is, whether it's as an entrepreneur or an executive or a business owner or professional or a mom or a wife or a child, friend, family member, colleague, just person, help us to remember that we get to do this with you and in accordance with your will and your word. And just help us remember that we get to be in a relationship with you, that we don't have to do this alone, that you'll help us find the words and the ways, and that when we lean into your strength and your abundance and your power and all that you provide, we can do all things through you and through Jesus who strengthens us. So in your name, I pray. Amen. Beautiful prayer. Okay. So today, from a wisdom perspective, we had one question that was asked this week that was amazing. One of our academy students who had watched me and Lee shift from running the institute to running regulated routes. She was like, how do you plan a pivot like that? How do you make a shift like that? And I was like, wow, what a big question. And also what a powerful question, because I think that this is something for entrepreneurs, executives, just leaders in general. A lot of times we, through seasons, feel called to shift and change. A lot of times God working in us leads us to actually physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, relationally change. And the work that we're doing changes alongside that or inside of that. I want to talk through shifting and pivoting and following what God puts on our hearts to do. Because I think in today's world, that is a very difficult thing to do. I think that in the age of such connectedness, and when I say connectedness, I mean from a physical perspective, like we are more physically and socially connected than ever before in terms of the availability of interacting with other people. We have access to so much worldly resources. We have access to things that give us more knowledge than ever. We have Google, we have AI. From a business perspective, the last 3 months has been really fascinating as we have been helping our agency clients shift from asking the question about how do we make sure that the things we're putting out around our business are SEO optimized or search engine optimization. Like, how do we make sure that we're thinking about SEO? How are we thinking about AEO? AEO is answer engine optimization. Instead of optimizing our content for search engines, now we're actually optimizing for answer engines like ChatGPT, like Claude, like all of these AI systems that are coming out, because people are actually starting to search more on AI than they are on Google. In fact, when you go to type something in the Google search bar, now you have several AI things that pop up at the top that link to articles. How do we communicate in these rapidly shifting ways in today's society with the idea that we are not bound by space and physical place anymore when it comes to business? When I first started, the conversation was like, oh, you're starting an online business. Every business nearly is an online business now, because it's very rare to find a business that isn't online, that is not talking about themselves or sharing their things online. So when we think about how we communicate and how connected we are from this technological and physical perspective, I think it's also really important to position this in the context of how connected we are spiritually. I saw this stat the other day, and at first I was like, that can't be right. And then I went, well, no, that probably might even be a little low. The average American is spending 6 hours and 42 minutes on a device. So nearly 7 hours a day staring at a screen. whether that's from a work perspective or a leisure perspective. We've been talking about this with our kids. We have family pairing. Our kids are on these social apps, but we can see what they're doing. We can see how much they're spending time on them. And when we were seeing how much time our kids were spending on a couple of apps, we were like, whoa, okay, we got to look at this. I'm talking about this in terms of when God leads us to shift, because what I find is that as we become more spiritually connected, a lot of the things that the world tells us are necessary from a connection and communication perspective for business start to not make as much sense. And that can be really tough. I had a question earlier this week around how do I increase the likelihood that something I say, that a post I put out, that a piece of content that I create goes viral? Like, how do I increase the likelihood that things pop off? This was a faith-centered business owner, and I said, you're not going to like my answer. She's like, I'm probably going to love it, but yeah, like my flesh might not like it. I said, the answer is consistency and persistence. The answer is you really get clear on your values and what you want to say in accordance with what God is leading you to say. And you say it over and over and over and over and over. And you give it to God. And you trust that that message is going to be received by the people it's supposed to be received by. And you don't get wrapped up in only 5 people liked my post, or I didn't get any comments, or I thought that video would go viral and it only had 200 views. We don't get wrapped up in those things because we don't actually know the impact what we are putting out is having. So when we focus on these metrics that the world tells us to as business owners, as professionals, like these are the metrics that tell you if what you are doing is successful or not, I have to imagine God's laughing at that. Because he's like, who? What do you mean? 7 people loving this doesn't mean one person's life didn't fundamentally change by seeing what you just said. And you getting discouraged that you only got 200 views, like that right there is a very worldly focus on connection and communication, rather than thinking about if this even changes one person's life, if this brings me a speck closer or a speck more in alignment with how God is calling me to show up, if this makes me just a tiny little bit more like Jesus, this is a good thing. And it's not about who's seeing it and not seeing it. And so I'm having this conversation, not quite to this level, but this is the crux of what we were talking about. And I said to this person, this is a profoundly unsexy answer. This is not a flashy, exciting answer. It's a very regulated answer. It's the answer of something that's been coming up for me a lot in my own life around my expectations versus God's promises, and being like, even if I don't get what I want, I trust that I'm getting what I need. Even if this thing doesn't look good to me, I trust that it is good. So even if the world's like, no, I need to see the result that I'd like to see now. I need to see evidence of this in a specific way now. A lot of times as we are surrendering our businesses, surrendering our callings, really surrendering our ways of operating in the world to God, a lot of these ways in which we connected start to feel bad. One of the hilarious things for me is that my TikTok feed has actually gotten kind of boring. When I say boring, I don't mean I don't enjoy it. I mean, a lot of the videos bring joy. They bring peace, stillness, but I don't feel the doom scroll that I used to have of like, oh, let me get one more dopamine hit, because there's not a lot of dopamine on my feed anymore. My feed is primarily puppies and babies and things on God, honestly, on Jesus, on prayers, on Bible verses, on like perspectives from other people who are really walking in their faith. That's quote unquote boring from a worldly perspective. So I'm feeling called to be on social media less and to find connection in person much more, getting back to the natural ways we were designed to connect in the first place. Case in point, oftentimes the people who ask me about how do I grow more in social media, they're having success in their real life, like in-person business. And so I'll ask them the question, well, okay, tell me about what's working in person. Because you've doubled your sales in the last month, or you got this large request from a client, a big invoice you got to fill. When we're talking about it, you can feel the joy and the peace. You can feel the fruits of the spirit, right? And I say, okay, well, how did that feel compared to what you're doing on social media? And immediately the posture changes and everything shifts, because it's like, oh, I'm taking this very worldly perspective over here. But in person, I am giving without expectation. I am focusing on the connection that I'm making with the person in front of me rather than if they're going to be a client or not. I am prioritizing those first two commandments of love God above all else and then love your neighbor as yourself. I'm loving my neighbor, and then I'm also loving myself because I get to have this really beautiful interaction with people while I'm together. My question back is always, well, why do you think that your in-person business is growing and your social media online business isn't? Do you see why these things might be happening? Usually they're like, oh, okay. The shift, I think, that we have personally experienced, and that I see a lot of business owners who are deepening in their faith right now are experiencing, is this coming back to what is real. Like, what is real? And what offers me the opportunity to act from truth rather than how things are projected or how things are perceived. So instead of focusing on connection, where I am kind of controlling how people perceive me, or where people are projecting onto me what they perceive, instead of just doing that, I'm really focusing more on what does it look like to drop the perceptions and projections and just like both for myself and also for this person who's across from me, and just be who God created me to be and let them be who God created them to be, and allow that natural relationship or that natural sense of connection to develop from there. When it comes to the question of shifting that client asked, like, how did you decide you were going to make that shift from the institute to regulated routes? How did you prepare for that? How did you set that up? What I shared with them was that this was not my first shift. This was my fourth or fifth shift in business alone. I've been in business for 13 years. So this was not my first rodeo. My first big shift was being in corporate America, being in healthcare, being in academia, to starting a network marketing business. That was a huge shift, because all of a sudden I'm not just posting pictures of my kids online or random quotes, circa Facebook 2007, where you used to write like, Lee is feeling such and such. It's like you share those sorts of things, almost like your, what was that called? Like Live Journal or whatever it was, where you'd like just share where you were at. Your away message, right? I'm dating myself here, but instead of shifting from just being, really shifting to how am I going to promote? How am I going to market? How am I going to sell? How am I going to do these things? And just to be transparent, there was a lot of perception and projection in that. I was taught, oh, this is how you have to show up. These are the things you post. These are the types of photos you can and can't. Here's the words you can say. Here are the words you can't say. It was very scripted. It was very prescriptive of this is how you show up. So that was the first shift, going, okay, how do I present? How do I project on social media in order to be successful? And y'all, like, I'm good at communicating. I'm really good at being like, okay, what does this situation require of me? How do you want my voice to be? How do you want me to look? How do you want me to talk? How do you want me to say the thing? How do you want me to show up? Got it. And not from a people-pleasing perspective, but so that I can get the results that I want. And that's a tough thing to admit out loud. Like my ego doesn't want to admit that out loud, but I'm really good at fitting in so I can get what I want. So I can get you to give me what I want. That was the first shift I made. I didn't know that's what I was doing from a business perspective. And I find that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle, especially faith-centered entrepreneurs. I wouldn't call myself a faith-centered entrepreneur at that time. Like, I believed in Jesus. I believed in God. but I didn't have like a real personal relationship with either of them. I was scared of God and I didn't really get Jesus. While I was a self-professed Christian, I was not living as one. And so as my faith grew, it's something that's really tough. I've been really deepening into God's word and God's will and the way I connect with him and how I truly want to show up with him. All of the gurus and people are telling me this is how you've got to show up to be successful in business. And that feels very contradictory to what I think is the right thing, like what I know in my heart is the right thing to do. So how do I marry these two things together without losing my soul? I shifted from that first network marketing company to the second network marketing company. And that was where I was like, oh, okay, this one feels so much more aligned. This feels so much more aligned because this first one's starting to put restrictions on and telling me I can't do these things, not able to like mask and like fit in anymore. As I'm learning more and more and feeling more confident and bold in what I want to be doing. And then they're going, no, you can't do that. So let me jump ship and go over to this other thing and try this. I did that probably 2 or 3 more times before I started the Institute. The reason I'm sharing that part of the story with you is because my understanding at that point was if I just find a different external container, if I just set up the business in a different way, this will feel better. Like if I just change the offer, if I just change the company, if I just change the place, this will feel better because I'll be able to be more of my authentic self. Shifting from the first network marketing company into the second network marketing company to then starting my own coaching business where I worked with a lot of network marketers, but helped them shift out, doing a lot of mindset coaching for women in business and women in roles where they could control their incomes. And then getting trauma trained while I was getting my doctorate in nursing. And really going, oh my gosh, like there's this whole other layer to everything where so many of us are showing up in this very dysregulated way. We're showing up in this hyper aroused way. And so if I integrate this in, both for myself and for my clients, this is going to help them be such better business owners and help them feel so much more aligned. The Institute was like, if you've ever heard the saying, the only place close exists is horseshoes and hand grenades, the Institute was so close. It was like 99% close. But 1% makes a big difference when the 1% is God. 1% makes a huge difference when the 1% is, am I building this and asking God to bless it? Or am I building this because God told me to build it? Because those are very different perspectives. And so in those first several shifts, the way I went about them was very much like, okay, you know what? I'm done with this and I'm moving over here to this. And it was sometimes scorched earth. I remember somebody teaching about it in a network marketing, like one of the professional development things that we had. Somebody talking about the word decide and how the word decide means to cut off. And so you burn the ships. And so like once you make this decision, it's never going back. And it's this very like grand gesture, line in the sand, like I'm done. I took that approach, which was interesting because for everything I knew about psychology, I probably knew that's not how things work. The way I would approach shifts in the past, not from this place of doing it with God, was, okay, I've decided this is the move and no matter what, this is going to happen. It doesn't matter if other people think this is the right thing or not. It doesn't matter if this feels jarring to people. This is what's right for me. This is my truth. This is my thing. So I'm going to do this. When I would announce the shift and the change, it was always like, oh my gosh, I have the most amazing, exciting announcement. This is the most incredible thing. This is the best thing since sliced bread. Like it was always this like fanfare because that's how I was taught to do it. I was taught like, get people excited. The interesting thing about that is when you go, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. This new change is the best thing ever. It doesn't leave room for the grief of the thing you're letting go. For anybody. For yourself, for your former clients, for your family, for anybody. And so it was very much like, I've decided, I'm cutting it off, I've crossed over to the other side, like that part's done. It's funny because I was, before this, like I said, God, you're going to have to give me the words today because I don't even really want to talk to people today. So if you want me to talk, then you're going to have to give me words. I'm just kind of chuckling right now because I was reading in the Bible right before I came on here. I can't remember exactly where it was. I left it downstairs, but I was in Ben Sirah and he was talking about like with grief, like when death happens, which shift is death. Okay. Something's dying and something's being born out of that. And sometimes those things overlap. So in the death of anything, in the laying down of anything, in the going, I'm no longer going to nurture or nourish this. And the natural consequence of that is that it's going to die. Grief is necessary. And he actually talks about like, be sure to grieve for at least a day or two. He's talking to people who are religious and spiritual leaders at the time. He said, be sure to let people see you grieve. Be sure to let people see you grieve. And it's not from the perspective of let people see you grieve so that they can feel sorry for you. Like let people see you grieve so you can prove how sad you are. It was let people see that you are grieving so that they understand that this is an important part of the process. Because if you don't let them see you do this, if you don't let them see you sad, if you don't let them see you having any sorts of feelings, then they feel like they're not allowed to have any sorts of feelings about it. And they probably do have feelings about it. So then there's just kind of stuck going, well, I was a client who leaves over here and now she's shifting, but she's so stoked that there's no space for me to be upset. And I did that several times. This last shift from the Institute to Regulated Roots, I did differently than I've ever done before. This was a God thing. I am not taking credit for this. Because I asked him, I was like, hey, I know that the way we've done this every other time, one of my favorite sayings, if it hasn't worked by now, it's probably not going to work. Right? Like, at least not like this. If you've tried it this way a dozen, 11 times, that is probably not going to work if you do the exact same thing again, unless something else has changed. That was the change. I was like, hey, I'm going to approach this the same way that I normally do, but can you show me any way I need to shift it, any way I need to change it? And I don't know that I've shared this story publicly, but for the first several months of 2025, the one thing I heard when I prayed about direction for a lot of things, the crosswalks that are designed for the visually impaired, where whenever it's safe to walk, you hear that high-pitched beeping sound. But whenever it's not safe to walk, it repeats and it goes, wait, wait, wait. I kid you not. I heard that. I heard that crosswalk sound to the point that I was starting to get like annoyed, y'all. Annoyed. I was like, God, are you kidding? Like, wait more. And you're not even going to just say it to me. But when I really thought about it, that was the thing. He was going, it is not safe for you to cross the road yet. It is not safe for you to cross the road yet. It is not safe for you to make this shift yet. I need to change other things around you that have nothing to do with you. And this was tough for me because I like to control everything. My ego's like, it's all about me. I like to make things happen. I like to stop things from happening. So I'm always like, well, it's always about me. And at the time, I wasn't hearing that part. I don't think I was ready for that part. But I was just hearing wait. Then in the months after, you know what I started hearing? Lee, this is not about you. I need you to wait and take these moves very slowly because this is not about you. But for the first time in your life, you're going to wait for everybody else to be ready too. You're always ready. You're good to go. Other people don't move like you. Other people in your life have never had the chance to move quickly because you've always moved so fast that they're like getting whiplash. Other people need to learn how to move at their own speed and speed up. This was not just in one area of my life. This was in a lot of areas of my life. And what was so fascinating is that in that waiting period of the shifts, we knew, like, we had a conversation as a team back in April where I was like, y'all, I don't think the Institute is going to exist in the same way. I think this is not going to be a thing the way that it is a thing right now. And we kept trying to move it and manipulate it and figure it out. And then a very interesting thing happened. As I waited, we had so many people decide to move in a different direction. they slowed down enough to go, you know what? Maybe this isn't the right train for me to be on. Maybe this isn't the right path for me to be on right now. And what I realized was when I'm moving and grooving and excited, other people get wrapped up in that. Other people get really excited with me because I'm convincing and I'm passionate and people are like, yeah, this is amazing. Like, let's go. But that's not always theirs. Like they're feeding off of my energy. And so when I slowed down, all of a sudden it was like, wait a second, was I attracted to the energy of this or was I actually attracted to the idea? And for a lot of people, it was like, oh, okay, well, now that we're all able to slow down and move at our own paces, I think I want something different. And if you don't know where you're going, but I'm kind of getting an idea over here that I do know where I want to go, so I'm going to go. And that kept happening. I'm not going to lie to you and say that felt easy. I didn't understand what was going on. Honestly, it just felt like everything was falling apart. I was like, I'm sitting here waiting, God, and like this person left and this person's not sure what they want to do, and all these things are happening, and I'm waiting, and everything's falling apart. Like, husband will tell you. He was like, what are you doing? Also, I trust you. Even if you don't give me what I want, I trust you. It's like, if anyone's ever done that combined prayer of, oh my gosh, I'm so frustrated with you, but also I trust you. Even if God, like, I was having that flip-flop moment over and over. What was so different about this shift was the speed and the allowance of the unfolding. The other thing that was different was that it was very private. If you were close to us, you had a semblance of what was going on. If you were very, very close to us, you knew the uncertainty, confusion, and the patience and the surrender happening in that space. But for people who weren't close to us, for even people who were like in programs but weren't in private programs where we were like sharing even personal things, people didn't really know what was going on. The few public posts we made is, hey, we're shifting and we're kind of starting this thing over to the side. If you're interested in knowing anything about it, please reach out. But beyond that, like, we're not talking about this. For the first time in my life, I did not tell people my tentative plans before they were put in place. For the first time in my life, I listened to where the Bible says this hundreds of times. Keep your mouth shut until it's already done. And that was very new for me. And so a lot of this happened internally. And it was only people who really felt that call to draw closer who then even had a semblance of what was going on. And so when we started talking about our agency in May, now granted, the Institute, we were still not sure what we were doing, but when we started talking about the agency in May, publicly, we already had 5 clients. We already had 5 private clients through our agency when we mentioned it on social media. And that was wild. It was wild to grow something underground, the natural way that God intended it. Like, it was kind of wild to set those roots down underground first. And then by the time we were even letting people see it, like, things had sprouted. At that point, we had some somewhat established roots, but we still weren't sure what we were doing with the Institute. And so this is what I want to show you all. Is so often what the world says is cut yourself off from option A, start option B. There is no overlap. You do not get to have overlap. That is a very dysregulated way of going about things. Right? Quit the job, start the business. Leave the toxic marriage and do this thing next. Like, sometimes the overlap is what's going to create the stability and sufficiency so that when you do fully decide to put A down and you are grieving and you are sad and you are having all sorts of feelings, guess what? B is already working. Okay. In case anybody just heard me say something that I did not say, I am not saying go find yourself a new lover before you divorce your husband. Okay. That's not what I just said. Again, God's word, God's will first. Okay. So please just don't apply extra context to a very simple statement I just made. I know how our brains work. I've had too many occurrences where people are like, well, Lee said, no, I didn't. That's not what I said. You are allowed to let something else slowly go while you're also building up something else slowly. So we actually gave ourselves time. I said, hey, let's not decide what we're doing with the Institute until the beginning of August. Like August 1st, if we still haven't figured out what we're doing, let's talk about it. And we did have some conversations. And my husband will tell you, there were times I tried to speed things up. Luckily, what was gorgeous about this is that he caught that and went, hey, you're trying to speed things up. And we decided we weren't speeding things up, remember? And I was like, oh, yes. Okay. Thank you for the reminder. Having people around you who catch when you start to go back to the old patterns, so helpful. Having a community of people who are also faith-centered who will gently rebuke you when they're like, did you say that you wanted to move a little slower here? And do you feel like this is a slow move? Right? I'm not telling you what to do. And I'm just repeating your own words back to you. I'm just holding up a mirror kindly. And if you need a hug after you look in the mirror and start crying, I've got you. But like, can you look at what you're doing? And can we question if that is in alignment with how you want to be showing up? And have it be your choice at the end because it's your will, right? You got free will. I'm not here to tell you what to do. And I would not be a good friend or a good mentor or feel like I was loving you to the full capacity that I have if I see you doing something that is out of alignment with how you want to show up and you have told me that you want me to tell you when you're doing those things. It is me loving you and willing your good by holding up that mirror. So this shift from scorched earth decision, cut off, burn the ships to, you know what, I'm going to allow this to naturally unfold and kind of see how it goes. If any of you have had this experience, we did not know if when we set the Institute down, have any of you ever had a pumpkin on Halloween? The squirrels get the pumpkin and scatter the seeds everywhere. And then the next year, you have pumpkins on the side of your house, and they're like an invasive species. Like, y'all, I have a friend who this happened to. She had like 10 by 10 area in the back of her house on the side that was pumpkins. And she was like, I never planned on growing pumpkins. There's a bunch of pumpkins here. Sometimes when things die, things grow out of them. And so by setting it down, sometimes really cool things bloom that you don't even realize are going to bloom. So it's not one of these things where it's like, oh my gosh, this is dead and it can't come back to life in some other way. It's just, I'm setting it down and seeing what happens. What happened with the Institute is that it mostly just withered. And there was this tiny little bit that we were like, okay, let's bring this over and transplant this part into regulated roots. But it's not going to be of the Institute anymore. It's going to be in regulated roots, but its origins were from the Institute. The legacy of it is going to live on in this way because we're taking some of the things that we did over there and bringing them over here and combining them with what we're doing. The other thing we did was we prepared for other people's grief. We knew that some people were going to be upset. We knew that some people were going to be like, okay, but I put my hope and faith and trust in the Institute. And I really liked being here and I really liked being part of the community. And this was something for me. And I'm grieving the fact that y'all have decided not to move forward with it. We also had to make space for the people who decided that they were no longer in alignment and very much disagreed with how we were moving forward. We had to make space for that. There were a couple people who relatively quickly after we shared some things that were like, how could you? And also, my money back, or I want this, or I want that, or like, this isn't fair. And there were some people who were very upset, despite the fact that we had planned and prepared and done everything we could. And here's the piece that I think is so important, okay? One of the things I was talking about with our academy students yesterday was there is a difference between critique and criticism. There is a difference between critique and criticism. Some people gave us feedback that was the most gorgeous, helpful critique, and it didn't feel good to receive it. There were a couple places that I dropped the ball because I've never done it like this before. Of course, I'm going to make some mistakes. So there were a couple places that we got feedback and we were like, oh, we've got to clean that up. So critique comes from somebody who cares about the well-being of what you are doing. They are sharing this feedback with you from a perspective of they care about you and they care about the program and they care about the business. They care about the thing. So if we think about art, when we have critiques in art school, a lot of times at the end of the week, you'll put your piece up and there will be a critique session. The whole point of that is to help you be a better artist and for your art to better convey what you are trying to convey. So a critique comes from somebody who cares about your good and the good of your work. And it also comes from somebody who is in alignment with your work. A criticism comes from somebody who is not in alignment with what you are doing, who does not understand it, who does not care about it, and who does not will your good or the good of what you are doing. They are sharing with you because they are dysregulated and they want to control you. They want to change what you are doing so that they feel better or they are right. So it is not coming from this place of refinement. It is coming from this place of judgment and condemnation. When you shift, you're going to get both types of feedback. You are going to get critiques and you are going to get criticisms. And I think my biggest lesson was, am I trying to please the world or am I trying to please God? Because I can't center both of those simultaneously. I can't seek God first and also seek Joe Schmo in my emails feelings first. I can't do both of those simultaneously. That is, again, one of these places you might hear me say something I didn't say. I'm not saying that there is an overlap oftentimes between what is good from a God perspective and what this person wants. What I am saying is that going to God first and being like, hey, how do you want me to handle this? Can you show me if this is critique or criticism? Can you help me decrease my ego and my righteous indignation at the fact that this person just gave me feedback? Can you actually help me find the critique in here? Because oftentimes in criticism, there is a critique. Inside of that criticism, there is a critique. So you've got to be able to set your ego to the side for a minute and find that nugget of wisdom inside of that condemnation and judgment and pull that out. Because sometimes that's the best critique you're going to get. Do you want to know the biggest critique I got out of all of this? I realized, wow, Every time we shift, we need to do it this way moving forward. All those other times that I shifted, that was not the best plan. So sometimes the critique is positive. Who can notice that was positive and negative? I had to admit that I was wrong, that I did not know best all those other times that I shifted and be like, oh, okay, God's way really was the best way. That did not feel good for my ego. What I saw was that every single criticism that came through was from somebody that was mad that I was putting God first. They did not like the fact that I was like, Jesus matters more to me than doing this the way other people want me to do it. People did not like that. To the point that I had some people say, I hope you go have fun with your newfound savior. I was like, oh, okay. All right. But when you get that, right? There were some other pieces and parts in there that were critiques. I had to go back to contracts and really look and go, is this person, what they're saying, is this applicable? Is this correct? And then I had to be kind and firm. I had to go back and say, hey, I see you in how you are feeling in this. And the contract said, I totally get how you could feel dropped here. That makes so much sense. Your grief is valid. And you specifically agreed to this. And what also felt really good was I was like, oh, yeah, this is why I do contracts the way I do. This is why we do terms and conditions the way we do. When we teach all of our academy students, I'm like, y'all go. Your terms and conditions and your contracts need to be so crystal clear. Like, you need to set those boundaries and say them so often. You're going to have people come back to you later on and be like, but you, okay. But if I can hold up a piece of paper and be like, hey, not only did you sign this, but we specifically talked about it. I have a recording of us on a call where we talked through this. So please feel your grief. And no to your request or your demand. No. And my husband will tell you, I wanted to die. The people pleaser in me is like, but we could just. And I was like, no, we're not sacrificing ourselves. We're not lighting ourselves on fire to keep everybody else warm anymore. Like, that's one of the things we've really been working on. We're not promising things that we can't deliver on. We're not overextending ourselves to try to make somebody else feel better. So the last part of this shift is, yes, discern between the critique and the criticism. And also, if you determine, you take that critique in and you turn it around on all sides and you examine it and you're like, yeah, I'm not doing that. Know that that's going to be tough for you if you're somebody who's never done that before. Like, we talk about the difference between niceness, meanness, and kindness. Nice and mean are actually the same thing. They are in opposition to kindness. It's not a spectrum, okay? Meanness is, I'm going to say the thing that, whether it hurts or helps you in the long term, it harms you in the short term. I don't care about how this feels for you at all. And I also don't really care how this affects you long term or not. I'm saying the thing that I think I need to say right now, no matter how it impacts you. That's meanness. Niceness is, I'm going to say the thing that I think you want to hear, no matter how it impacts you in the short or long term. We're not caring about this person's long-term benefit when we are being mean or we are being nice. We don't care. We are focused on how it feels right now. Mean, you're focused on saying the thing you want to say so it feels good for you. Nice, you're focused on saying the thing that you think they want to hear so that it feels good for you. Do you see how these are both self-absorbed things? Kindness is not a self-absorbed thing. Kindness is, when Jesus talks about the two greatest commandments, loving others as yourself, that's kindness. Tell the truth and say it in a way that, yeah, it might stay, and also it's going to help this person long term. It might not feel good for either of you short term for you to be kind. And if any of you have ever had that experience where somebody is very kind to you, but they say something in a pretty firm way and you're like, ow, thank you. I have this with Lee all the time. He will say something to me and I'm like, I am so angry at how right you are. So I'm going to go take a minute. If you are used to being nice, which I find most faith-centered business owners are, being kind is going to feel mean. Being kind is going to feel mean because you're being harsher and firmer than you ever have. And those sorts of boundaries are what are going to sustain your business long term and keep you from breaking promises and falling short and doing a bunch of things because you're going to stop overextending yourself and saying yes in places that you really should have said no or not like this. You're going to stop trying to make other people feel better about a decision that you know is the right decision. And instead of trying to make them feel better, you're just going to honor their feelings. You're going to be like, I see you in your feelings and those are yours. It's not my responsibility. We do not have the type of relationship where I have any sort of responsibility over your feelings. And I can see you in them. I can witness you in them. And if there's anything that I did that is out of alignment, I will address that. And if I didn't, then you just get to be mad. This is the hardest part, y'all. They get to go say whatever they want to say about you. They get to go talk about you. They get to go do whatever they want to do. And you got to let it go. That is hard. It is hard when you know people are talking about you in rooms that you are not in, saying things that you do not get to defend yourself against, and you got to go, I'm going to just let this play out. Just going to let this play out. For me, it's been giving that to God and being like, God will handle it. He'll handle it. If there's something I need to handle, he will tell me. If there's something I need to apologize for or repent for, he will tell me. Otherwise, he's got it. That is none of my business. I think the big piece to consider here is, again, centering God in the shift. And like, if you're not spending time with him on a consistent basis daily, invitation to do that. Because he can't show you the next steps. He can't draw close to you. He can't give you that wisdom and that discernment. He can't show you what you need to see if you're not spending time getting to know him better and being with him more, in relationship with him. It can't just be about going to him for what you need. It's also got to be about being in relationship with him and being kind to him and allowing him to say what he needs to say to you, even when it hurts. So that's all I've got. I love you all. See you next time.